Ready to explore the fascinating world of your own consciousness? We're diving deep into The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer today, a book all about understanding that bustling inner world and how tapping into it can lead to a more fulfilling life.
It's amazing how quickly Singer hits on something we all experience but rarely acknowledge directly, that constant chatterbox in our heads.
Oh, you mean that voice that never seems to take a break? He's not talking about hearing voices,
Yeah,
right? More like the constant stream of thoughts we all have.
exactly. Singer calls it our roommate, and he encourages us to think of it as an actual person we spend every waking moment with.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. What's the point of picturing my inner monologue as a person?
It helps us see how much influence that voice actually has on us. Imagine this roommate is always second-guessing, overthinking, maybe even offering terrible advice. Would you want to spend a whole day with someone like that?
Honestly, not even an hour. But the thing is, we endure that internal chatter nonstop. I never thought about it like that before.
It's easy to let it fade into the background, right?
hmm
But Singer wants us to really tune in. He's highlighting that just because those thoughts are inside our heads doesn't mean they are us. We are not our thoughts.
So are you saying that by becoming the witness, as Singer calls it, we can break free from this constant chatter?
Exactly. Think about watching a movie. You experience the emotions, the story, but you are not the movie itself, are you? You are the observer, the one experiencing it all within the theater of your consciousness.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. I can see how recognizing that separation between ourselves and our thoughts could be incredibly freeing. But how do we actually do that? I mean, it's not like we can just turn off our thoughts.
It starts with simply noticing those thoughts, especially the negative ones, and recognizing them as just energy trying to flow through you. Singer argues that when we resist those thoughts or cling to the positive ones, we create blockages within us.
So it's not about ignoring our negative thoughts, but rather about changing how we relate to them.
Precisely. It's about understanding that those negative thoughts, those uncomfortable feelings, are not our enemies. They're more like messengers trying to get our attention.
That makes sense. But how do we go from resisting those thoughts to actually listening to them without getting totally swept away by them?
Singer suggests we start small. Notice those minor annoyances, things we usually let bother us, and practice letting them go. It could be as trivial as someone taking the seat you wanted.
So instead of getting irritated, use it as a chance to practice detachment, like a mental muscle we're trying to strengthen.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that attachment that need to control and choosing to release it. It's not about becoming emotionless, but about changing our relationship with our emotions.
This reminds me of that analogy he uses about the light blue Mustang.
Ah, yes. You see that same car that looks just like your girlfriend's, except you think you see her with someone else in the front seat.
Ouch, that's rough. But I get it. The image, the experience, it sticks with you. I got it.
And it's not just the image itself, but all the thoughts, emotions, even sensations that get bundled up with it. Singer calls these samskaras energetic imprints left by unprocessed experiences.
Wait, samskaras, those are important, right? Tell me more about those.
These samskaras, according to Singer, can build up in our spiritual heart.
Hold on, by spiritual heart, he doesn't mean the actual organ, right?
Right, not just the one pumping blood. It's more like an energy center, a source of our deepest feelings and intuition. And those samskara, those unresolved experiences, they're like clogs in a valve, restricting the flow of energy within us.
So you're saying these unprocessed experiences, these samskaras, can affect not just our mood, but even our physical well-being. That's fascinating. So if these samskaras are clogging up our spiritual heart, how do we clear them out? How do we deal with these energetic blockages?
Well, Singer would say, the way we usually deal with uncomfortable emotions is either clinging to the positive ones, replaying them over and over, or pushing away the negative ones, burying them deep down.
But either way, we're still engaging in that resistance, that clinging, which he says is the root of so much inner turmoil.
Think of it like trying to control the waves in the ocean. You can't win that battle, can you? The key, as Singer describes it, is to learn how to ride those waves, to observe them without letting them capsize our inner state. It's about recognizing we are not those emotions, but the vastness that can experience them.
Okay, that makes sense. But it's easier said than done, right? How do we actually learn to do that, to stop resisting those difficult emotions?
Singer talks about this inner strength. We all have this willpower to step back from the chaos and become the witness, the one who sees it all unfold without getting lost in the storm.
So when those uncomfortable emotions come up, instead of getting swept away, we can choose to observe them without judgment.
Precisely. It's not about becoming indifferent to our emotions, but about creating space around them. Singer calls it transcending the tendency to close. It's about expanding our comfort zone to include even those experiences we typically try to avoid.
That makes a lot of sense. He also uses the analogy of a hammer hitting your toe, how instinctively your entire focus goes straight to the pain.
Exactly. But with practice, we can train ourselves to observe even intense experiences without letting them completely take over. It's like training a muscle. The more we practice letting go of the small stuff, the stronger we become at handling the bigger challenges.
So it's a continuous process, always evolving. It's not like you reach a state of perfect attachment and then you're done. Life will always throw curveballs.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating this awareness, this ability to catch ourselves when we start falling into those familiar patterns of resistance or clinging. And that's where the real growth happens. When we stop running from the discomfort, from the pain, we can finally start to heal those old wounds, those samskaras that have been holding us back.
That reminds me of another point Singer makes about how we often treat our minds so differently from our bodies. We usually only think about our bodies when there's a problem, a pain. But with our minds, it's a constant stream of worries, anxieties, what ifs.
It's a constant state of resistance, isn't it? Like we're always bracing for the next blow instead of actually being present in the moment. Singer argues that this in itself is a form of suffering.
So, by choosing to face those fears, those inner thorns, as he calls them, we can start to experience true freedom.
Not freedom from pain, but freedom from the feel of pain. He uses the powerful metaphor of a fortress to illustrate this point. We build up these walls around ourselves, convinced we're protecting ourselves from harm, but in reality, we're imprisoning ourselves.
It's like that example in the book of the person who builds this incredible self-sufficient house in the middle of a beautiful field.
Yes, they become so obsessed with security and control that they end up locking themselves inside, shutting out the light, and eventually they're living in darkness.
Wow, what a powerful image. It really highlights how we do this internally as well, clinging to our self-image, our beliefs, our past experiences. We create this rigid structure, this house of thoughts that we think defines us.
And then, of course, we have to constantly defend it right, fight to keep it intact, which only creates more suffering.
So, is Singer saying that this structure, this self we've built, is an illusion?
It's like holding on to a handful of sand and claiming that's the entire beach. It's not the true self, the vast awareness that can experience all of this.
And that awareness is always there, just waiting for us to let go of the illusion and step into the limitless potential that exists beyond our self-created boundaries. That's an amazing thought. Speaking of letting go, Singer also challenges us to confront a universal truth: death.
Ah, yes. It's not a morbid thought, as some might think, but a reminder to appreciate the preciousness of life, to live each moment fully as if it were our last.
He compares death to a landlord and ourselves as tenants. Think of it this way: your life is on lease from the universe. How does that change your perspective on what truly matters?
It's a question that really makes you examine your priorities, doesn't it? Are we spending our precious time on things that are truly fulfilling? Or are we chasing after fleeting pleasures caught up in dramas that ultimately don't matter?
It's about shifting our focus from what we can get from life to what we can give. From that place of selflessness, of unconditional love, we can truly start to appreciate the miracle of being alive, the beauty in every moment, even the challenging ones.
And that ties in perfectly with Singer's message about finding happiness. He argues that the path to true happiness isn't about trying to control external circumstances, but about choosing to be happy, regardless of what happens.
So it's about letting go of those conditions we put on our happiness, those buts and ifs. It's about making a conscious choice to stay open to the flow of life, to embrace the highs and the lows with equal acceptance and appreciation.
And that doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent to suffering. It means we learn to see it as a natural part of life, an opportunity for growth and transformation.
It's about remembering that all things are impermanent, that even in the darkest of times, the light will eventually return.
And that awareness, that deep acceptance, can bring a profound sense of peace and joy, even in the midst of challenges. Now, when we do this, when we truly start to let go, we open ourselves up to a whole new way of seeing the world.
So when we talk about seeing the world in a whole new way, what does that actually look like? How does letting go of this illusion of control change our perspective?
Singer would say that it opens us up to recognizing the interconnectedness of all things, that divine energy that flows through everything and everyone.
Okay.
It's about tapping into something far greater than ourselves.
It's like we're shifting from a limited, ego-driven perspective to one that's more expansive, more connected to the universe around us.
Exactly. And that's where his concept of living in the Tao, the middle way, comes into play. It's not about forcing things, about chasing after extremes, but about finding balance, letting go, and flowing with the natural rhythm of life.
So it's about recognizing that in every situation there's a sweet spot, a place of harmony that we can find if we let go of the need to control everything.
Precisely. He uses the wonderful example of sailing. It's not about overpowering the wind and waves, but about adjusting the sails, finding that point of balance and allowing those forces to guide you. It's about effortless action.
That's such a great visual, finding that sweet spot where we're working with life, not against it. It reminds me of that other example Singer gives about walking in a straight line versus a zigzag. We waste so much energy when we're constantly resisting, fighting against what is.
Exactly. And when we finally let go, that energy becomes available for something much more meaningful, something aligned with our true nature.
It's like we unlock this hidden reservoir of energy and potential within us. And that brings us to, I think, one of the most profound and perhaps even controversial ideas in the book, the loving eyes of God.
Yes. This is where Singer really encourages a major shift in perspective. Instead of viewing God or the divine as judgmental or punishing, he asks us to imagine a source of pure love, acceptance, and appreciation for all of creation.
That's a powerful image to be seen with that kind of unconditional love, regardless of our flaws or mistakes. It's a very different perspective than many of us grew up with.
It is. And for many, it can be incredibly liberating. It frees us from the need for external validation, from constantly trying to prove ourselves worthy, because in those loving eyes, we already are worthy simply by existing.
It's like that moment when you look at someone you deeply love with complete acceptance and adoration. Singer suggests that this is how the divine sees us all the time. It's a beautiful thought.
It is. And it's a reminder that this source of unconditional love is always present, always available to us, just like the sun, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not.
And just as we can choose to turn away from the sun and live in darkness, we can choose to turn away from this love and live in fear and separation.
But the moment we choose to turn towards it, that light, that love is there waiting to embrace us. And that, I believe, is the essence of Singer's message. To awaken to the truth of who we are, to shed the layers of fear and conditioning that keep us trapped in suffering, and to live a life that reflects that divine love.
It's a journey that requires courage, commitment, and a willingness to face those inner demons, those thorns, as he calls them.
It does. But the rewards, as Singer so eloquently describes them, are beyond measure. It's a journey towards a life that is not just happy, but truly meaningful. A life that is a reflection of that love that flows through us all.
It's about recognizing that we're not just tenants clinging to possessions, but guests here in this life, appreciating the gift of each moment.
And it's about making the choice every day to let go of fear and open our hearts to the infinite possibilities that exist in each breath.
Well said. And that wraps up our deep dive into Michael A. Singer's The Untethered Soul. We hope this exploration has given you some new insights and inspired you to continue your own journey of self-discovery.
Remember, the choice is always yours, to live in fear and resistance, or to embrace the freedom and joy of living an untethered life.
Until next time, may you find peace and presence in each moment.